Hey there, we got audio. Okay, there we go. Check, check. I can see it. It's working now. Hopefully you guys figure out I'm over here now. Oh, brother, sorry about that. Sometimes when you got multiple audio interfaces hooked up, when you're setting up the live stream, you have to pick which one you're going to use. And I did indeed pick the one that I'm using, which is my Samson G-Track Pro, and it still didn't work. It's still like defaults to, I don't know. It's just like a glitch in the matrix, folks. The safest way to do it, if you ever do these things, is just have one audio interface hooked up. It really is, because I've got, you know, multiple different, like the Helix and the Axe Effects and the G-Track and my UA interface, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the safest thing to do is just have one hooked up, and then it's kind of a no-brainer. It just works. Anyway, I was starting to answer a question from Christopher about when I realized the audio wasn't working, about Coachella. And he said, what do you think of Coachella? You know, I watched some of the live stream last night, and I don't know if you guys are that hip to Billie Eilish or not, but she was amazing last night. I'm pretty fascinated with her these days, because her and her brother make all her music, and you know, I think he's obviously a super talented dude that plays multiple instruments. He was up there playing bass, and it's just him and a drummer and her, and she's like 17, by the way. But it's just really great. I don't know. I like her music, and she's incredible for her age. I mean, God, like, just really great performer and unique. You know, it's pop, but it's not like anything else that's out. So anyway, I really enjoyed watching her. I thought she was great, and the visuals and stuff were really awesome. So that was good. And you know, I'm fascinated by his behind the scenes. Like, I'd like to know more about him, because he's producing, obviously, and you know, and probably largely, you know, steering that ship, I think. So anyway, I enjoyed watching that. So check out her if you, Billie Eilish. She's really great. It's not guitar music, but you know, it's good music. I think her album's really, it's so minimalist. That's one of the things I like about it. Like, their music is really minimal. In kind of the same way, you know, I like Pharrell's productions too, because he's really minimalist. There's only a few things going on at any given time, and you're never getting bombarded by information, too many notes or too much stuff in the production. And anyway, hers is completely different sounding, but like in a similar sense, it's really minimalist, and it allows you to just really get, I don't know, it's kind of hypnotizing. It's cool. Mark says he needs to get in-ear monitors. What are the best? Cost isn't an issue. Well, I've heard 64 audios, 18s are great for 3K. So here's the thing about in-ears that I have found. And 64s are the ones that I actually, you know, formulated this opinion from mainly. More drivers and more cost doesn't necessarily equate to better sound, especially if you're a guitar player. So like, too many drivers and too much bass and too full of the sound is not a great thing. Like, when you think about guitar players and studios and stuff, like having tons of subwoofers and stuff, like, it's not really necessary for good guitar tone. We need good, like, detail through the mids, and you don't really need a lot of drivers for that. So, you know, good old Ultimate UE7s always sounded pretty good to me for guitar, because they were kind of made for mid-forward sound for singers, vocalists, and, you know, guitar players that wanted mids. So on stage, when you're playing in a band, and especially if there's, you know, bass and keys and stuff, there's a lot of low end coming off the PA. Like, you kind of don't need a lot of low end in your in-ears, because you're hearing it you feel it off the stage, and it's getting in, you know, your ears anyway, kind of from all that. You know, like, you can plug your ears and you can still hear low end, right? But the high end and the mids go away. So, and then there's the factor of, like, Sensophonics, for instance, is an interesting in-ear company, because they, from the beginning, they were ear preservation company. They made, you know, hearing aid devices as well as earplugs and things like that. So Sensophonics, they don't believe in multiple. They only make in-ears with no more than 2 drivers, I believe. Even their top end ambient in-ears, which are like $2,500 for a pair, they're just 2 drivers, because they don't believe in all that low end. They think you're going to wreck your ears by having right on your eardrum all those drivers making all that bass. And it's sort of harder to hear. The other thing to be aware of is it's sort of harder to hear or feel. Like, bass can be really loud and it doesn't hurt. as much as like mids that are like, but bass is actually, from what I understand, I'm not a doctor, but from what I understand, like a lot of bass right there on your eardrum can damage your hearing quite a bit. So all good things to be aware of. So having said all that, in the 64 line, they make a A6s, I believe they're called. They have an in-ear called the A3 and one called A6s. I've tried both those, and I've tried the ones with more drivers too. I don't know if it was the 18 or so. When I originally got, I have A5s, which are now discontinued from 64, and I really like those. I think the A3s or the A6s are similar to the A5s, and those are, I think, 3-driver and 6-driver respectively. So anyway, I tried generics at NAMM of both the A3s. I guess I'm a good guy to ask this question because I do have quite a bit of experience with them. I did just do this recently. So A3s and A6s both sounded good to me. A3s were a little more like my UE 7s that reminded me of like kind of mid forward, and the A6s were a little flatter, a little fuller. Like maybe I think they recommend those for people that want to mix and they want just a little bit more full range detail, like really good hi-fi experience. So and it sounds like for you, maybe look at the A6s. I don't think you need to look much further than that. I wouldn't spend $3,000 on a pair of in-ears, but $1,000 or something, it's pretty par for the course. Robert Appel is up in the top chat. Thank you, my friend. He says, your demo music just keeps getting better and better. Thanks, man. Please consider putting out another album. You know what I might do? I'm considering doing a similar thing to what Leo does from Frog Leap, which is I've got a Patreon that's set up, but I've never used it. And I'm considering doing a thing where maybe I just do a Patreon different tier levels where it's like, you support me at the 99-cent level or $1 level or whatever. And much like Leo, he has a system where when he makes a video, I believe if you're a Patreon supporter of his, I think it's at the dollar level, what you get is you get to download every single thing he's ever done musically on MP3. So that means every single video that guy's ever made, the MP3s are all in a folder or on a site somewhere or whatever. And if you support him at that $1 level, then you can download his entire catalog of. So I'm considering doing something like that, where like every single piece of demo stuff that I've ever done all ends up in a folder somewhere, and you can have access to it if you want to become a Patreon supporter, which would be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tracks at this point, going back 10 years. I don't know. Let me know what you think about that. Because people seem to like the demos, and they're like, you should just put these out, So even though many of them are 1:20 long. Guitar Nerd was Pete Thorn 2 is largely comprised of, songs that I took from demos and then expanded into full songs. So maybe I would continue doing it the same way with the next one. So anyway, glad some folks showed up. Oh, Phil, somebody's in the top chat there. I missed it. It's F Fate Bled, something like that. How do you create the Swell intro into Focus? What you do, I'm trying to think what I did. It's largely comprised of, I think I started with a whammy bar way down, and you're hearing or maybe I'm tuning up the strings. I can't remember exactly how I did I think I had the whammy bar down, and I was playing the strings just kind of open and bringing it up. And then my friend Dennis did some synth stuff in there. So that's going on. And then when it swells, that's like you can play a chord into your DAW, into Logic or something. You can easily reverse the audio. So if you play a chord, then it fades, right? You reverse it, now it goes like that. That's what it sounds like. So I do that a lot on like Into Focus on Guitar Nerd. Sorry, we were talking about that song right now. What's the song I'm thinking of? Velvet Fist off of Guitar Nerd. I did those kind of into, and it's just reversed audio, and and then you line it up. Once you reverse it, it's out of time and stuff, and then you can look at the waveform and see it going from small to big and then cutting off, and that was the point where you hit the chord going in reverse, and you just take that point and you put it kind of right on the bar line and do some editing, and it has that cool effect. David says, how was Don Henley to play for? I always had a great experience with him, 6 years I was in that camp, and it was good, man. you know, he's a demanding guy. He likes things the way he likes them, but that's okay. He's a legend. And he was always courteous and nice to me. And, you know, as long as you did your job, it was good. And at the end of every night, the feeling when you got through a show and it went well, hopefully, was a nice feeling of accomplishment. You know, the end of, we used to do, the encore was always Hotel California and then Desperado, which is, if you got those two songs, those should just be your encore, right? So, so yeah, at the end of the guitar solo to Hotel California, I'd hold up my guitar and the crowd would go nuts. And then it always felt like, because Desperado was really easy to play for me, and the part I had to play, it was just kind of like cowboy chords. So the end of the solo to Hotel California, when I'd hold up the guitar and the crowd would go nuts, I always felt like, okay, it's Miller time now. I can relax. I got one more tune, and it's an easy one. And it's Desperado, which is, Don would always go, you know, the piano intro would come in, dang, 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 dang. And then he'd go, the whole crowd, you know, there'd be the pause on the piano chord, and then he's supposed to come in and sing, and the whole crowd had, you know, they all start singing Desperado, and then he'd just kind of go like, and he'd wait for them all. You know, it was like a little comedy bit. Or he'd just, and then he'd go, Desperado, and everybody go nuts, you know. And anyway, it was fun. You know, always fun. It's great. I mean, like, for instance, at that moment, I didn't have to play the intro to Desperado. You know, it's just piano and him, and then the guitar comes in. Don't you know, feet get cold in the winter time, or whatever the lyric is in the first verse. And I didn't have to play until then. So I could just sort of stand there and watch him. And it was like I was at the show, because you got this world-class guy that wrote that song, and you're standing beside him up there. It was a really amazing feeling. It was the same thing for Sunset Girl. Sorry, not Sunset Girl. New York Minute, which is I think one of the greatest songs ever written. It's a beautiful song, and the lyrics are incredible. And I just didn't have to play very much in it. There's not a hell of a lot of, you know, my particular guitar part wasn't that complicated. So I got to, the verses had no guitar. So I got to just stand there and watch him every night and just kind of almost forget that I was on stage and just watch him sing. That was pretty special. I like Don. Always had a good experience with him. Any experience with Eastman guitars? No. But I've seen them, you know, a little bit. They're kind of doing recreations of Mosrites and things like that, right? And Lauren's in the house. What's up, my friend? Let's see. Quentin says he wants his money back because my first stream was a failure. Sorry about that. Jennifer's in the top chat. Hello. A cool story about the Henley Encore. Any other specific tour experiences jump out as coolest, most meaningful of all time? Thanks for doing the top chat, Jennifer. I appreciate that. Coolest, most meaningful of all time. Well, the Fuji concert I did with Hiroshi Negabuchi was one of the coolest things, because it was that all-night show that we did from 9 p.m. or 9:30 till like 7 in the morning. We did 4 sets of music and played all night for, you know, 100,000 people. It was a completely unique experience that I'll probably never have again, unless he does another one. And I get to be a part of it. That was incredible. That's certainly a standout. Just from the standpoint of doing a show like that, but then also doing a show like that that's very sort of specific to the Japanese people, but yet being able to be a part of it. You know, like nobody in America or Europe, you know, where a lot of people probably wouldn't even know that that was happening, you know, but in Japan, it was a big deal. And it was, you know, I think the biggest stage ever assembled in Japan. And so just to be able to be a part of that in another country and stuff was pretty amazing. A couple of Cornell shows stand out for sure. Like the Chile in 2007 was really amazing. That one's a real standout for me. Yeah, I don't know. There's a whole bunch that I can think of. Probably that Fuji show is just so unique, though. It's, you know, playing all night and all that business. We got Justin in Thunder Bay here. That's a place I haven't been since maybe 2011. And what's up, Canada? Good to see you. Uwe is in Uwe. I think is how you say it, from Norway. Hi. How you doing? Good to have you here. And Lawrence is here, and Scotland's in the house, and we got about 313 people online. All right. Good to see Jimmy's back watching over. Yeah, Jimmy's up there again. That's right. My friend Lauren came by this week and helped me put up Jimmy. So Jimmy is secure now. He's not going anywhere, right? He's sitting right on top of my head. Okay, Tim's here, and he says, do I ever run Mix IR, the impulse response loading program, with different mic cabs on separate channels in Logic? So generally speaking, I use Mix IR, and I'll blend the IRs within it. So you can load up, I don't know, there's like at least 8 slots or something in there, right? Or maybe 6, where you can load up different IRs and blend them. So I'll do it right within the plugin, just on one channel. And I use that plugin in particular to do that for a long, long time. I'm not doing that as much lately, and to be honest. I'm generally speaking using the PT15 or the aux as of late. And kind of just utilizing, the PT15 is the main thing I've been doing for a little while now. And I'm just gonna let's see, I'm gonna get rid of the other chat here, guys, just really quick, so that there's no confusion. Just deleting it. Understand that deleting the video can be permanent and cannot be undone. Yes, delete video, because that one was a mess. So I don't want people thinking that that was the one. No, that's not 64. This is 64. Live stream number 64 today. This guy in Cleveland says, should you shoot for different guitar tones if you're playing an arena versus a club? For instance, less reverb mix. Oh yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, you have to consider the venue for sure. But yeah, less reverb is always a pretty good call, because reverb is a tough one in an arena. It's definitely it can be problematic. So yeah, your delay mix, just knowing that it's hard these days because everybody's on in-ears too, and you're not in the crowd. So, but like in-ears, everything can sound the same, whether you're in or not the same, but sort of way more similar if you're in a club or if you're in an arena, because everything's just close mic, and you're not hearing what's out front. So you might get a lot of swimmy stuff going on in your in-ears. Some guitar players dial in a lot of reverb and delay, and they like that, and it feels good to them. But what's going on in the house ends up being mud, if you do a little too much of that. So that's definitely a factor. It's good to walk out. I do that. Like in arenas or in clubs too, but I mean, wherever you're playing, I like to play a bit at soundcheck and walk out in front of the stage and hear the PA. At least you can't go too far, because then you get all this delay and you can't play with the band. But while the band's playing, I like to walk out front to at least the first couple, 3 rows and get off the stage and hear a bit of the flowing PA and hear some of the front fills and hear the way the guitar sounds in the PA. And then you can make better judgments on that kind of stuff. Sometimes I want to add delay or whatever. Like I remember going out and doing that and going like, God, this, like playing an Edge style, dotted eighth delay, and feeling like I couldn't really hear the delay enough. Like I could definitely bring that mix up out here. So it's good to hear in the PA and get that kind of reference. John's up in the top chat. He says, you mentioned in a video, I think it was you, pairing a cab and load box to attenuate a tube amp. How do you go about doing that? I think what you're talking about is using the surreactive load in parallel, or a similar load box in parallel with a speaker cabinet to drop the volume. So if you plug the surreactive load in to say you've got an amp, and it's just like plugging in 2 cabinets. So if you say you had a head and you were going to take the 2 speaker jacks on the head and run it out to 2 412s or something, well, the power is now going to get distributed between the 2. If you plug in a load box and a 412, you're now distributing the power between the 2. So what ends up happening is, Sir says it's about a 3 dB reduction in sound, which would be like kind of maybe the first click on an attenuator, like a hot plate or something. You'd get that much attenuation out of plugging in. And now what you have to do is you have to consider the impedance and set your amp accordingly. So like I guess you have to set your amp for 4 ohms, maybe. If you're, I still get screwed up about impedance, but if you've got an 8 ohm 412 or 212 or whatever, and an 8 ohm reactive load, I think you have to set the amp at 4 ohms in order to be. You don't want to set it at 8. You have to set it at half because of using the 2 cabinets. So that's just the one thing to be aware of. Make sure when you're set it the same as you would for using 2 cabinets. And just get the impedance correct. But yeah, what'll end up happening is you'll get a net, reduction in volume. And that'll be good for some stages, hopefully. Tim is in the regular chat here. He says, hey, Pete, do you ever run... Oh, you already asked that. Sorry. Not that you already asked it. I just already answered it. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna try to move down a little quicker. Find some more questions. Tom says, in your studio or house, is your studio in your house or nearby? My studio is not in my home. And how does that work for travel? Do you spend most of your time in your studio? It seems like it these days. I don't get enough time at home. For a while there, I was working a lot in my old home studio. I just was enjoying doing that. And then when I moved, I decided to, build the new studio and built a room I really liked, this one. And so now I'm in here most of the time doing work. And I like it. It's good. And it's not that far from home. How is amp production going? Everything's on course. Are you talking about the PT15, I would assume? Everything's on course for the release where, June is was the goal. And as far as I know, they tell me that everything's looking good for that. So I'm stoked about that. And let's see here. How do you have the conversation of kicking someone out of the band? That's from Chris. Wow, that's a tough one. Psychology. I'm not great at that stuff, to be honest. That's a part of my weak point is confrontation with people, as it is with many folks, I guess. But you just have to be honest, I guess. Just get together with the other band members and try and I guess the goal is to try and let people down easy. And but it's never easy, is it? It's like firing people, and you just what a terrible thing to have to do. So I don't have a great answer, but communication is always, and honesty is always the best policy, I think. Easier to without being mean, it's always best to be honest and let people, at least it can be a learning experience for somebody if they lost a gig because they're not pulling their weight or whatever. You can say, look, we just feel like it's not working out for this reason, and this reason. We wish you all the best, and we just feel like it's not the right fit. I guess that's the best way to go. Chris says, any idea where I can find nickel-covered thornbuckers in the UK? I would call Peach or Guitar in Epsom, as I believe where that was. But Peach has them as well. There's big deal, both of them pretty big dealers in the UK. That would be my my advice there. Also, would you advise the Thornbucker Plus set or just the Thornbucker Plus in the bridge? So just to clarify, the Thornbucker Plus is only for the bridge model. There's 2 different models of bridge pickup, Thornbucker Plus and regular Thornbucker. And then there's a neck Thornbucker, but no Thornbucker neck Plus model. That doesn't exist. So depending on the guitar, if you want to get a PAFE kind of set for a Les Paul or a 335 or something, and you want kind of vintage, you can get the regular Thornbucker set. If you want a little more juice in the bridge pickup, a little more output, a little more kick, get the Plus model. And I especially recommend the Plus model generally for 25 and a half, bolt-on neck style guitars. I think it just works a little better for me. Although the original one is fine too. It just has a little more kick in like an alder body guitar or something. And I've said this before, but I feel like with mahogany guitars, that are 24 and a half scale, it's like the guitar's hotter. Like the glue-in neck gives you a little more sustain, and the mahogany gives you a little more warmth and the fatness that, so it's not technically hotter, but it feels like the guitar is giving you a little more sustain and push. And that's why in a Les Paul or something like that, I feel like you're fine with the regular one. And then in a 25.5 alder body or ash body, I like the extra kick of the Plus model. Emil is in the top chat, and he says, "Hey Pete, does it matter what brand of gear you bring to an audition?" Yes, I think so. Do people care what's on your guitar's headstock? Yeah, I mean, it can, you know. I remember the first time I auditioned for Don Henley was in 2000, and I remember bringing a Marshall, and he was, you know, I think he was just more, you know, maybe he was half kidding, but he said, "Got any Fender amps?" You know, that's just like more of the Eagles, right? You know, nobody in the Eagles was using Marshalls. It was Fender type combos always in the studio and stuff, I think. So I always remember that, but it can matter. Sure. Yeah. You know, I could clearly remember auditioning for a band that I was in, bass players, and we had about 30 guys come in and audition, and you know, a couple of guys, great players, but this was a band that just required a good rock and roll bass player, and somebody would come in with a 6-string bass, kind of one of those coffee table looking ones, and string it up high, you know, be up here, and you just knew that's not the right guy. You know, so the type of instrument you bring, you know, if I was going to audition for Sheryl Crow, I'm not going to show up probably with a guitar with a Floyd Rose and you know, that type of thing. You want to bring a Telly and a Les Paul. It's definitely a factor. You know, you have to consider the gig. And from an aesthetic perspective, from you know, guitars are as much the tone and everything. As soon as you see one, they invoke a feeling about the tone they're going to create and about the image of wearing it and the way it looks. It's part of it, right? So, you know, if I was going to go audition for Metallica, I don't think I'd bring a Telly. You know, I'd bring my Explorer and you know, my you know, more hot rod Strat style guitars, I guess, and stuff like that with higher, maybe higher output pickups and black. You know, I'd bring my black Explorer for sure. So it's definitely a factor. Okay. When I do auditions and get ready for gigs and things like that, I consider right out of the gate all that stuff. I'm like, okay, what's the appropriate thing to bring for this gig? And then if I get the gig, that ends up being what I use. Like, you know, you make the sounds for the audition, maybe program a couple things, pick your effects, pick your amp, set your amp up and stuff, and pick a couple guitars, and you go do it, and then you get the gig. That's generally the gear you start with, because it was like, all right, well, this seems appropriate for this gig. If that makes sense. Braxall says, how do you get effects in a live situation in a 1972 50-watt Marshall without the effects hitting the Marshall's preamp to muddy up the sound? The answer is something like the either a Sur reactive load or something similar, running then line out into the effects and then out into a power amp, or you could use something like the Power Station from Fryette, which has an effect loop in it. Everything's all built in. That's probably, honestly, the way I would go for that particular situation, because it's an all-in-one solution. The Boss thing will do that too. The new tube amp expander has an effects loop in it, and it's even got built-in effects. So you could get something like that and use it with your Marshall. And, you know, it's the delay and all that stuff is coming post amp. Then you're loading down the amp, adding the effects to that loaded down line level signal, and then powering it out to your cabs or IRs or speaker simulation, whatever you want to do after the fact. Okay. What else have we got here, folks? How do I know when it's time to crown or replace my frets? I've had my 335 since 2015, and I might need to do something soon. That's from Nick. Yeah, you might just need a little light fret dress. God, I hate getting fret dresses because I like them big. So it's like when the guitar starts getting worn, you're like, it's like, you know, going to a smaller fret is what it is the equivalent of, you know. But hopefully you don't have to take too much off. How do you know? If you're feeling like you might need to do something soon, then I think that's your answer. You know, if you're seeing pits in the frets or flat spots, you know, generally you see them on the G and the B string. It's time to, you know, take it to a competent tech and have them look it over and maybe get something done. Yeah. Good morning, everyone, says Hoagie. What's up, Hoagie? Have I ever played a 60s or 50s Les Paul custom fretless Wonder? If so, how do they feel? A little bit, yeah. I've played a few, you know, Les Paul Customs with fairly flat frets, I would replace them. I'm not down with low frets, really, which is that's a great segue from the last question. I like big frets. I mean, I've come to terms with the fact that I started using 6100s in the 80s, and that just worked for me. I don't need them on every guitar, but I heard an interesting thing Jakey Lee was saying recently on Dave's crazy tone talk that they did with him, Dave Friedman's, which is a great watch, by the way, because they both get sloshed. But Jake was talking about on his guitars how he, from the 15th fret up, he uses a 6105 style fret, and then the ones below it's 6100s. And he likes that because he feels like there's a lot of metal when you get up high. As the frets are getting closer and closer together, higher on the neck, it's just a lot of metal without a lot of wood and a lot of space between. So he actually uses 2 different fret sizes. He's an interesting character. His guitar, you know, has a JB in the bridge, the main one, his model, and then 2 DiMarzio SDS1 single coils, which are like a hot single coil. I think they have a ceramic magnet, and they're real hot. And Dave Friedman actually got one of those models, the Charvel Custom Shop, you know, Jakey Lee model, and I tried it, and it's interesting because it does work. It's like the single coils are hot enough that they balance basically perfectly with the JB. A 14K bridge humbucker. You know, really good balance between the neck position and the bridge position, let's say, with a single coil. Now, they don't sound exactly like vintage single coils. They're hot and they're different, but they sound good, pretty good, you know, and nice with overdrive and stuff. They're not super chimey or anything like that, but it's a thing. So, and, you know, he did his thing where he angled the pickups too, so that the bass strings had a little more treble and the kind of reverse slant. So he's an interesting guy. Phil's up in the top chat. Hi, Phil. He says, have you heard the new CD Now by Jeff McCurlane and Robin Ford? I haven't. That sounds good. I love Robin Ford. I think he's great. So I'd like to give it a listen. I haven't heard it yet, but thanks for the recommendation. Thanks for doing the top chat as well, Phil. Much appreciated. I haven't checked that out, but I would like to. Let's see. Lewis said a while ago you mentioned some merch from you and Dave Friedman. You said people that like old school Marshalls would love it. Any news on this? We were just coming up with like some silly things about like turning up amps loud, and no, we haven't done anything with it, but we should design something like, you know, turning up amps loud, and, you know, putting some silly slogans on t-shirts and stuff. I can't even remember what they were at this point. But like basically like, you know, step 1, turn all the knobs on 10. Step 2, you know, play. Any questions? Like stuff like that, you know, like just silly stuff on t-shirts for folks that like loud guitar sounds like us. In the minority these days we are. But hey, we're a subculture, but we're a noisy one. Have you tried something like a load box with a line mixer? That's from Tom. Well, in essence, I mean, that's what I do with an interface. An interface, in essence, is a line mixer, I guess. You know, taking the line level signal and then sending it out, blending it somehow with other things. So I guess I have. Sometimes a break from guitar music is good, says Chris. Yeah, that might be a response to what I was talking about earlier, watching a Coachella stream. Yeah, definitely sometimes a break from guitar music is good. I listen to all kinds of stuff. I mean, KCRW here in LA is probably the station I listen to the most, and they play all kinds of music. But yeah, definitely I like all kinds of stuff. I mean, it informs your guitar playing in a different way, you know? I like the concept of like listening to all kinds of different stuff. And then it's kind of like, you know, Holdsworth, I don't think really listened to that much guitar music. He was mainly like trying to emulate saxophone players with his tone and his technique and stuff. He was kind of, I think, always like jealous of the you know, the evenness in his tone and his legato technique, and the different things that he did was to kind of avoid sounding like a typical guitar sound and kind of go more in that direction, because he liked that timbre or whatever somebody improvising on saxophone. That's what I heard anyway. So it can be a cool thing to listen to different kinds of music and then figure out, how would I add guitar to this, you know? I wrote an article a while ago for Premier Guitar called "Is Rock Guitar Eating Itself?" And it was kind of all about how the younger bands. I'll get back on that thought in just a second. Somebody's in the top chat and I want to grab it. It's Jeff Rupert, and he says, "Hi Pete, bye Pete. You got to go. Don't go, dude. Don't go. House won't remodel itself." Well, okay. So I can't stay. Thanks for being here, Jeff. And I'll announce right now. Next week I'm going to be not here on Sunday, so I'm going to do it on Monday instead. So Jeff, if you're around next week, I won't be around on Sundays. On Sunday, but I'm going to do the live stream Monday evening. So if you want to join in, I believe that's the 22nd. I think so. Okay, take care, Jeff. Do that remodel. Tom's in the top chat as well. He's in the UK. He says, "Hey Pete, do you like to run your Archer before or after other drives?" Generally speaking, before. I run my Bogner and my Bogner Blue that I've been using a lot lately, and the what's it called? The Jan Ray. I run those in loops, I think 6 and 7 on my pedal board, and the Archer is in 5. And that way I can turn on either the Jan Ray or the Bogner Blue on my clean channel of my amp, and then I can kick in the Archer for a lead tone on top of, stacking into it. And that's really where I mean, you could use it anywhere. If you put it at the end of your chain and keep the gain low and the volume up, you can use it as kind of a clean boost to boost your clean amp's volume. But I do the other thing. I want the mids and the sustain and stuff out of it, so I run it into my drives. I like it like that. Probably sound really good either way, though. Okay, so what was I saying? Oh God, I lost my train of thought. I was talking about, oh shit, I completely forgot what I was talking about. Damn it. Oh, you guys, I completely, somebody remind me what I said I was going to get back to there. Man, my mind these days. That's okay. I'll just take some other questions. But, yeah. Oh, right. The article about rock guitar eating itself. So I did a column in Premier Guitar on that. And I was saying how artists like, the Beatles, like McCartney, grew up hearing vaudeville in the house all the time. And then you had John Lennon with Elvis Presley and stuff like that, obviously. George Harrison listening to lots of, Indian music and music from India. And then they're a good example of all those different influences coming together to make what was the Beatles. And Black Sabbath, like I've just heard stories about these guys and the stuff that they listened to growing up. They were into lots of different stuff. And we have to keep in mind too, at the dawn of rock and roll, these players they're inventing this stuff and figuring out they can turn up amps loud and stuff. But all the music that they drew from, I mean, there was no like heavy music when they were kids, they're now like, we're talking about the 40s and the 50s when they grew up listening to stuff. So it's like, they drew from whatever they, so rock and roll ended up being this completely different thing. Now, as you get further and further down the path, and I could use the Greta Van Fleet as a pretty solid example, I think. I mean, or, a lot of modern bands would be like, what are your influences? And they'll be like, oh, Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin, and it's like, and what does your band sound like? Kind of like Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin. Drawing from other influences, I think, is really, really important to pushing the genre forward. So rock music, guitar, that kind of stuff. It's great to listen to other stuff. If you enjoy other kinds of music, listen to it and then let it inform your rock playing. And you might end up sounding like different than any other rock player because it's like, yeah, I primarily listened to, what'd you listen to growing up? I don't know, Mahavishnu Orchestra and, music from, I don't know, indigenous African music or, like the different, like whatever you can pull from, and get inspiration from, and then allow it to influence your rock guitar playing. I think it's a cool thing. Mark says, any reason to use in-ear monitors in a home studio with Barefoot monitors? I see YouTube players with in-ear monitors while playing and recording the songs with modelers and plugins. Maybe they got to keep it quiet. Maybe they're recording at night or something. That could be. I generally use just regular headphones in the studio. I don't like the idea of having that extra kind of like having to get them in and stuff. I have used them though in here when it's like, when, I'm cutting, say a vocalist comes in here to cut a vocal or something, and I don't have I've got a set of in-ears around. So I'll give them the headphones and I'll put in the in-ears, but I'll never do it a lot of people like them now, they like the way they sound. In-ears for me are a pain in the ass, but I use them when I have to. Generally, I do like them at the gym. I'll go to the gym and use them, or on planes and stuff. They're great on planes because I put those things in as soon as I sit down. Just shut out the chaos, everybody's conversations and stuff. Do you do your taxes and depreciate your equipment? Deer Creek. Yeah, I got a good tax guy that is a legendary dude in LA. Does all the musicians. It's funny. I went there last week and I ended up having lunch with Brian Ray from McCartney's band because I saw him in the waiting room. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Let's go eat." He's like, "Oh, cool." So that was great. And I saw another friend of mine, Paulio, in there around tax time. It's like, it's a like old home week at the tax office. But anyway, he's primarily does musicians. So he's musicians and actors, people in the entertainment industry. So he's really good at the at that particular thing. Somebody was asking once again about the intro to Into Focus, but I answered that. So the Swell intro to Into Focus was done by reversing a guitar chord, flipping it around digitally in my DAW in Logic, and then it goes instead of down. So always a cool thing. You can do it to cymbals too. Reverse cymbal, reverse piano. I like my voice representation of reverse sounds. Did I do that good? Good evening from Europe, says Robbie Rob. I must be way back in the chat. Sean is here. She says hello. Okay, more questions. Let's see. Mike says, yeah, Zamps, but he wants a load box with good options for a good price. Any ideas? The reactive load is the no-brainer. It's a great device that solves. It does everything most people need it to do. It's the same thing that's built into my new amp. And did Tiger win the Masters? Did he really? From Old Guy's Guitar Vlog. I haven't been following it all, but that guy, man, 9 lives, right? He's amazing. He's that's great. I mean, I think he's had so many ups and downs. I used to play golf when I was a kid. I haven't played in years, but I did enjoy it. I played a lot growing up. My whole family was like into golf and stuff, so I just grew up around that. I played like 3 times a week when I was a kid. I sort of sucked. I was never really very good at it. But the interesting thing about golf and guitar music, I got better at golf after I started playing music, and it was like music clicked with me somehow more than sports for sure. And the thing with golf is it's super zen, and you're playing against yourself. You're really, it's a sport that you're playing against yourself, and you're really challenging your own. It's about this is a zen element of relaxation and not getting in your own way, getting out of your own way. And with music, it's kind of like that. I found with guitar, you got to get out of your own way many times and not think too much. Practice the fundamentals and stuff, and then get out of your own way and just let it happen. With the golf, I'm going like this because I'm swinging a club. And once I started playing guitar, I started realizing that a similar sort of relaxation and not getting tense and not worrying about the wrong things, was really important. So actually, I found that music made my golfing better. I could relax more and kind of, but I haven't played golf in years. Wouldn't mind starting again at some point. JazzCam998 says, hey, Pete, do you think you'll be checking out the Waza Tube amp expander? I hope so. I haven't tried it yet, but I've missed multiple times to try it. Unfortunately, they were going to send me to Japan to check it out. That pedal show guys went, as well as Rabia, I think, and maybe Ola. I think a whole bunch of people went over there, and they asked me to go, but I was on a clinic tour with Sir right then, so I couldn't go. I was doing my recording production clinic. And then there was another time that actually the fellow from Boss, Yoshi's the president of the Boss, who I've become friends with, along with Dave Friedman. He asked Dave and I to get together with him when he was in LA and check it out. And I was doing, I think, another clinic, so I wasn't able to make it. So I haven't tried it yet at all, but I did see it at NAMM a little bit. Mark is in the top chat, and he says, would you recommend in-ear monitors over headphones for sound quality? I don't have a reference on that really. I've never really found a pair of headphones or a set of in-ears that I think is amazing sounding. So I need to be, uh, you know, I would love to find a pair of both that I feel like is really incredible. Those A6s did sound really good that I tried it. They were the kind of audiophile sort of, $1,000, $1,200 range in-ears that 64 has. They sounded really good for in-ears. The headphones I use aren't necessarily great sounding headphones. The 7506s, these Sonys. Now, okay, what else have I got here? I got a couple more pairs around. These guys are pretty great. These are Beyerdynamic DT1770 Pros. These ain't cheap. I got to give these more of a listen. They sound really good to me. But as far as tracking guitar, it's like there's this clarity thing that happens with the cheap Sonys that I can just hear the guitar really good in them. So as a guitar player, it's like when I'm working on guitar tones and stuff, I guess what I'm getting at is I know how to dial in those Sonys, kind of like I used to be able to dial in NS10s, the Yamaha monitors. I can make NS10s sound like the way that I want to make them sound. They just I have another pair in here of headphones that I want to show you. These are a nice listening experience and a completely different kind of thing. These are Audio-Technica. What are these called? Oh God, I'm having problems reading the ATH. God, I can't see for shit, you guys. I need my reading my readers. ATHR70X. Now you notice how these have these open backs on them, so they let a little bit of sound out. They're not great for like tracking acoustic guitar and stuff, but they're a nice. These are supposed to be like audiophile, I think they're like $350, something like that. These sound good. Like really good, and they're a little smoother and a little less aggressive, especially in the bass, than another pair of Audio-Technicas that I have, which are nice. But so anyway, I've got all these different headphones. I need to spend more time with them and just see. I've never put on some and just been like, these blow me away. Like, wow, I can't believe how good these headphones sound. Like everything, I just want to listen to them, It's never been that way for me. So would I recommend in-ear monitors over headphones for sound quality? I mean, technically, I guess with the in-ears right in your ears, and they're, you're not dealing with they're closer in, and it would seem like you should be able to get a more accurate listening experience with, I try those 64 audio 6s, 6T or yeah, I think those are pretty good. Are they inspiring? I mean, here's the thing. You got to keep in mind with electric guitar, part of the sound is the sound that we get used to is the cab and the room that you're in, and the guitar not being right direct in your ear. It's interacting with the room, and it's like it's like the difference between like hearing a drum sample and hearing a drum played in a room, where it's like, like when you close mic a snare drum with a mic and then you listen to that sound, it's a certain sound. And then what you try and do is combine with all the other mics and stuff like that to get in a recording, the realism of the real kit. You know what I mean? And that you do that through compression and through combining room microphones with the close mics. You're trying to get the whole picture. Well, part of the problem with guitar to me is that when that isolated thing it's just so isolated and small sounding right there in your eardrum. So the experience you're talking about, like more inspiring. What's inspiring to me is like actually hearing the sound of the amp in the room. So I don't know if I'd call in-ears inspiring. That's the only thing. Okay, moving down. What else have we got here, you guys? Let's see. Looking for some more questions. Ben Coombs is in the house. He wants to say hi to everybody, all his pals. What would be your best clean stereo tone? Michael Landau-esque and Eric Johnson type chimey cleans. Well, you want to start with a good sort of Fendery, a clean channel with probably the bright on, and then you want to maybe add some compression. And then what you want to do is use some, the Michael, like I got my full tone tri-stereo chorus over here, which is nice for splitting to stereo. You could use some parallel delay in reverb that's kind of warm sounding. You know, like use a warm plate or something like that, and then you're a lot of the way there. You know, watch my video on the tri-stereo chorus, full tone that rack chorus. It's not called a tri-stereo, but they call it the that rack chorus, and see what you think of that. Or maybe some of like my Nunaber videos, Nunaber Inspire, and the one for their they made a pedal that has tri-stereo in it. So just search my name in Nunaber as well as full tone. You know, it's funny that it's almost like as long as you've got a good core, clean 2B amp tone, the rest of the stuff is what adds all the sauce. The amp's the easy part, I think, almost. Like, you know, honestly, you could use a super reverb, you could use a deluxe reverb, you could use a you know, a good Sir like mine, you know, that has a nice, you know, Fendery clean channel, and then just add some compression, reverb, delay, and maybe the tri-stereo thing. Mount Line is up in the top chat. He says, "Hi Pete, do you usually set the placator amp model in the Helix and HX Stomp when using it with Celestion IRs? How do I use it? And do you use the saturation?" So the placator is the sort of Friedman BE model that comes in those. The Sat is going to emulate the Zener kind of. Whoa, top chat's blown up. I got to get to all you guys. So sometimes if you want it to sound really heavy or like you're playing metal, turn on the Sat, maybe turn off the Fat. I find, unless you're using single coils, it comes when it loads up, the Fat is on. I would turn it off and bring the treble up a little bit and bring the bass down to 5. It might be up at 6 or something. Just run the bass. Like you can kind of run the tone controls anywhere between 4 and 6 and just dial it in. Bring the gain up to like, you know, 7.5 or something like that. And yeah, bass down just a little, turn off the Fat. Sat if you're playing metal. Try that and see what you think. And use the Celestion Greenback all mic mix, 412 all mic mix, and tell me if it doesn't sound great. It really does sound good. It's one of the best sounding amp models I've ever heard, actually. It sounds really convincing. They knocked it out of the park with that one. And if you use a good Celestion IR, it really sounds good. Neil says, are attenuators not good with multi-channel amps as the power amp? Are attenuators not good with multi-channel amps as the power amp at its sweet spot will make the clean channel sound distorted? You can find a fine line. That the thing about an attenuator is it allows you to dial in the amp at the perfect point, right? So you can, you know, it's funny because the clean channel on an amp is the distortion from an amplifier. Most modern amps with channel switching for sure is mostly like 92% coming from the preamp. And then if you turn it up, yes, you can get the amp into driving the power section, but it's power amp drives the kind of thing that you can dial back just literally by your touch. Does that make sense? Like rolling the guitar volume down a bit. Well, I mean, you know, even an old Plexi or something, when it's cranked, it's like most of the distortion's coming from the front end of the amp and the phase inverter tube. So no, I don't think that's an issue. Just the great thing about an attenuator is that you can balance all that stuff and find the sweet spot and then just control the volume with the attenuator. I'm missing all kinds of people in the top chat here, so I'm going to try and get to them. Thanks for doing the top chat, you guys. It's Rise is from Australia. He says, oh no, he's on tour in Holland from Australia. Got it. First time tuning in while you're live. Cool. Any horrible tour experiences or war stories with your guitars and airlines you'd care to share? You know, I've been pretty lucky, dude. One time, I mean, I remember a road case getting lost and then being like, ugh, and having to give my address, and it had my full 6-space rack at the time that I had in it. And luckily they found it and it showed up and it came to my house, but one of the wheels was missing off the road case. Guy showed up at the door with this like heavy anvil style case with a wheel going on it. I was like, oh God. And I used to get routinely I would get like my rack or my pedal board and you'd open up the case and the pedals would just be strewn all over because like the thing had been, you know, you'd know, and they just throwing it and it hit the ground and not even the dual lock would hold. So I remember that. I don't really have a lot of horror stories beyond that, beyond just that kind of abuse. I've been pretty lucky with things not getting destroyed. Like I've never had a guitar broken or anything like that. One time when checking in for a flight, they wanted to check my guitar that was in a gig bag, and it was a Gibson Chet Atkins you know, one of those sort of electric acoustic Chet Atkins guitar that I was doing a kind of a low budge tour with, where, you know, I was flying with that and a pedal board in a road case that was underneath the plane. And they were just being jerks at the gate and like, nope, we gotta put this under the plane. And I was like, it's gonna get ruined in a gig bag. You can't do that to me. And he was such a dick, this guy. He was just like being really, and then somebody recognized the artist I was with, that I was playing with, because we were, I think, either in Miami or Puerto Rico. I think we were in Puerto Rico. And I was playing with Draco Rosa back then. He's very famous there. But we were doing like kind of a low budge, like sort of club tour that was promo for a record, just touring with acoustic guitars and stuff. So, I remember somebody recognizing him and somebody going, don't you know who that is? Like coming over to the guy, like, cause he was traveling with us and going like, you know, just don't screw with those guys, like leave that guy alone, sort of thing, you know? And so then like somebody helped me out getting on. And of course you get on the damn plane then, and there's all this overhead space, and, you know, there's a flight attendant down there going, oh, we've got a great coat closet here. We can put your guitar in, you know? And I was like, thank you, you know? This guy just, you know, said, they're just assholes, man, sometimes, you know? You know, they just, I don't know what it is with the, you know, there's always room on the plane for the guitar. That's the thing. And they just make it difficult at the gate. I don't know. It's not, you know, they're going, well, if we start letting everybody on with these things, then it's like, no, like not 100 people are going to show up with guitars. There's going to be just a standard 2 or 3 people for every flight that are guitar players to show up with guitars. And they're going to, you know, just help accommodate them. Like, cause it's not that big of a deal. There's always a closet on every damn plane. There's a closet, you know, it's such a drag. Anyways, rant. Okay, I missed a couple people in the chat, guys. So I've been going down slowly through the regular chat, and I know I'm missing some of these folks. So I want to get to some of you people that, let's see, like Tom is in the top chat, and he said, my physics teacher in college told me that the psychoacoustic effect of live instruments has a psychological effect, or physiological effect, excuse me, on the body. Thanks again, Pete. I believe that to be true. Sure. Absolutely. So yeah, that, you know, eliminating that kind of like the instrument interacting with the whole room is the drag, you know. Leon is in the top chat. Oh, I just remember something I want to talk about for a minute in just a second here. Kind of relating to that. Leon is in the UK. He says, I'm looking for a 112 speaker for a Comet 60. Have you had any experience with Celestion Redback or Scumbag M75 100 watts? I have used his M7500 watt. Thanks as always, he says. Good speaker, you know. I think that sometimes, like for an amp like a Comet 60, you might consider using the heavier magnet, you know, H style. Like, so if it was a Scumbag, I might go H75 in a 112. Or you know, like you say, the Redback, that could be a good speaker, high output speaker that's designed for, you know, obviously, you know, high output 100-watt amps and stuff like that. I think that the problem with sometimes in a 112 with a greenback, it can sound great for dirty tones still. Yeah, that's how I recorded a lot of Guitar Nerd, you know, was a greenback M75 65-watt speaker in a 112. Great for that, like for, you know, Marshall Crunch. But clean sounds can be a little, you know, they do that mid-range bark thing really good, but sparkly cleans and stuff, and like overall kind of you know, a balance of clean to all the way through to heavy distortion, I would almost consider an H style, or maybe that Redback speaker, something with a heavier magnet, more bass, more top end, like a little more full range, because a 112 can sound, besides just the speaker, you know, that sounds woody and kind of more mid-centered, a 112 can sound like that. They're not the fullest sounding, biggest sounding cabs, right? So I would recommend, yeah, you're on a good path there with the Redback. I would say Comet 60, consider the Creamback too. It's 100 watts, I think, isn't it? That could be nice. Alnico, you know, it sounds like you're not playing metal, right? So maybe consider the Creamback, the Redback, you know, because it's a Creamback's an Alnico. That might sound really good. Did I miss anyone else in the top chat here? I don't think so. Okay, guys, thanks for doing the top chat. Now I'm down at the bottom of the chat now, and I'm sorry if I've missed some questions, but I was so far behind anyway. Just maybe type it in again. Okay. Let's Let's see. Can you use a Line 6 HX Stomp as an IR loader, or is it proprietary Line 6 cab models only? You can use it as an IR loader. Yeah, you can totally use it. No, it's not proprietary Line 6 cabs. You can totally load IRs into it. Sorry if the question has been asked or obvious. I'm green with IR Tech. No, you're all good doing that. It's got the same IR loader as the Helix in it. Flying is the art of throwing yourself at the ground and missing. What? That's Lawrence. Jennifer says, you've been growing increasingly happier and funnier online. That's good. Maybe I'm just more comfortable, I don't know, doing this stuff, because after 64 of them, you would hope, Sebastian says, thanks for noticing, though. I hope I generally aim to be a happy person in my life. Okay. Yeah, John saying HX Stomp can load IRs, no problem. Yeah, the HX Stomp is basically a Helix just with one processor instead of two. You can do up to 7 blocks, but yeah, you can use it as an IR loader, no problem. Redbacks are amazing speakers, says the Tired Horizon. I've never heard one in person, so there's an endorsement from somebody that sounds like he's checked it out in person. FDMF Rafa from Puerto Rico says, come back anytime. I'd love to visit again, man. I had a lot of fun there playing with Draco. It was great. A couple different times, maybe 3-4 times I was down there, I think, different shows. Common Sense says he's got a Power Station 2 load box. Is there a way to connect multiple amps to it via some sort of switching device? Yeah, you could use a no reason why you couldn't use like the Tone Bone thing that I did a demo of. I got it around here somewhere. Where the heck is it? I might have put it in the other room, I think. Tone Bone VT amp switcher. I don't have it in here right now, but look into that. That would be a way you could switch multiple amps into it. You know, I've got my Pete switcher up there, the 88S. So as long as you're running into, you know, the radial has some sort of protection for an amp on idle. It's not a load box, but I think it probably has a, you know, resistor that at least handles the resistive load that handles the load of an amplifier idling, you know, the hiss. And then, you know, you select A, B, and that would go out into your power station. It should work, I think. I don't see a reason why not. Yeah. Okay. Moving down. Love your channel, says Fret Friend in the UK. He's in Nottingham. What's up, man? Thanks for being here. His name's Victor. Okay. Looking for more questions down here at the bottom. Okay. Shred way harder than I do. Matt Beckley says, I started doing this cover. Hey, Matt, what's up? Cover band thing once a month, and my friends come up on stage and shred way harder than I do. Any advice to tell them how to settle down? Come on, man. You know that's not true. That's always a dangerous thing, right? Like doing cover bands and then getting people to sit in. You never know what's going to happen. Could be a good thing, could be a terrifying thing. Yeah, it's true. How would you say your musical tastes have evolved through the years, says Bruce Johnson? Well, you know, it's funny because I started out pretty solid. My first record was Breakfast in America by Supertramp, which I think that's a solid first album. And I started out listening to a lot of Beatles and The Who, and I always come back to those influences. Evolved, then I went into, you know, more like my sister was always into metal and stuff, so I heard a lot of that. And then I grew up, you know, hearing, you know, it's just 80s, and I was hearing everyone from hard rock, you know, AC/DC and Van Halen and Ozzy and Sabbath and all that stuff, and then Guns N' Roses and Aerosmith. And then as I got into the 90s, I had this like sort of as that whole scene was dying out, like rock was changing, you know, then Nirvana came along and stuff. And I liked that because that reminded me a little bit of Beatles songwriting, sound and Alice in Chains and stuff, of course. But during the same time, I also kind of went through a little singer-songwriter, like I started a songwriting project where I was playing mainly acoustic guitar and doing this kind of like mellow, like with a girl singer that was a female singer. She was great. And I was listening to like everybody from like Joni Mitchell to Neil Young to, and what I started to realize is they were all Canadian. And I was like, oh, I'm like having a little Canadian roots renaissance here or something, like getting back to my like songs I heard probably growing up. But those people were coming out with great, like Joni put out Turbulent Indigo, which is a record that Michael Landau played all kinds of badass ambient stuff on. Really great record. And I loved that record. And it was like really profound for me. I thought it was terrific. And then Neil Young put out Harvest Moon at the same time. And I love that. That's such a beautiful sounding record. So I was listening to all that all of a sudden, like getting really mellow. And then come the early 2000s, I started listening to more, I don't know, I guess it was like electronic music. And I was, you know, hearing all the stuff like Morchiba and, you know, 07 and all these kinds of, you know, I was gearing more and more towards actually in my listening towards things that weren't that guitar oriented, which I talked about earlier, like with less mid-range and a little more like relaxing to listen to. And at the same time, it was like Tool and stuff. And I was hearing things like that and loving that. But in my listening, yeah, I would get pretty varied, listening to all kinds of different stuff. I really like Massive Attack and stuff starting, you know, in the early 2000s. I was like hearing a lot of that. And then just through my gigs, I guess, you know, playing with Cornell and, you know, then I got way deeper into Soundgarden material and his solo stuff, which I loved because once again, my early Beatles was sort of, you know, when album like Euphoria Morning, you know, made a lot of sense to me, being informed by, you know, Beatles and stuff early on. Yeah. So that's it, really. I just try and keep an open mind, listen to stuff. And sometimes I just turn on AC/DC and Van Halen and crank the fuck out of it, you know, because I want to hear that too. Tim Quarter's up in the top chat and says, do Celestion IRs include a mic pre as part of the signal chain they model? Well, technically, yes. An IR doesn't capture distortion or compression characteristics at all. So if you're driving a mic pre into distortion, which they don't generally do. They're not going to do that when they're making an IR. So you are hearing probably like a Neve console or whatever's in the studio, you know, the tone, the tone of whatever pre, it's basically capturing the tone of the whole chain, but not the compression or the equalization characteristics. So those are a couple limitations with IRs. This is where something like the aux is interesting because they've modeled speaker drive. See the sound of the speaker kind of flattening out and stuff as it's getting driven harder. You can do in the aux with that knob that controls speaker drive. And it's pretty cool to mess with that. Is it a huge factor? I don't think so. The biggest factor is the tone of a certain speaker in a certain cabinet with a certain microphone or group of microphones on it and running through those mic pre's or whatever and then being captured into an IR. There's a tonal signature of that, as well as some early reflections and things that can get in there if the IR is long enough. So all that gets processed into the IR, let's say, the IR, and really accurately. You know, generally speaking. And that was Tim in the top chat. Thanks for doing the top chat. I appreciate that, my friend. Hello from Brighton, says Ted. He says he's acquired one of his dad's Takaminis. It's helping me cope with his recent death. I'm sorry to hear that, my friend. I know how it is. My dad passed away in 2006. And it never goes away. You just learn how to live with it, I guess, hopefully. It's rough though, so sorry to hear that. Do you have any equipment from near, you know, or departed folk? Well, yeah, I do. My D28 was, you can see it hanging back there. It was given to me by Cornell, so that's, you know, real special for me. So that one piece, I guess, would be the one. Let's see, what else we got here? What's the question? in all your live chats? The main question, like a consistent question, plexi sound pedal. No, I would say the most consistent question is, should I get a Helix, a Kemper, or a Axe-Fx? Or should I sell my amps and get a Kemper, or things like that? That's the most common one these days. Plexi sound pedal. The one I have on my board right now is the Wagner Blue. I like it a lot. Great pedal in a small package. Just versatile enough and sounds really convincing. You can hear it actually in the new. Do you guys see I put out a video for the Audience Sono this week? Nice interface that also combines a tube preamp, and it's kind of a unique device for recording guitar and bass and stuff, and also vocals and things like that. Unique way to go at it. Anyways, I like it. I was going to mention an interesting video that Rick Beato put up this week. Just real quick, I'm going to talk about that for a second, then I'll get on to more questions. Rick put up a great video called, how computers killed rock music. And I thought it was a great analysis because he, in the video, goes through and shows what Beat Detective does, which is, for those that aren't familiar with DAWs and Pro Tools and stuff like that, Beat Detective is something that basically quantizes live parts. So if you got a drum track or something going on, you can basically lock it to the grid and quantize it. Somebody's in the top chat, so I'm just going to grab that real quick and I'll get back to this. It's Nathaniel. He says, given the amount of time that you spend on guitar, have you ever had to deal with tendon issues or things like tennis elbow? Dude, I'm actually dealing with a little bit right now. But I don't think it's guitar related. It's kind of weird. I run into problems sometimes because honestly, I haven't been playing that much. I've been working and making videos and stuff, but sitting down and practicing 2-3 hours a day is not something I've had the chance to do recently because of just other things I've been doing. But I am having a little bit of an issue with the second finger on my left hand, where it sort of feels like it got compressed into a vice or something. When you close your finger in a door and you're like, ow, and then like 3 days later, you still feel it. It's not painful, but you feel this like compression or something. I'm having that. And I think it's all nerve stuff. And so I get issues, yes, with my, I think it stems largely from here on me, like this part of my elbow, because I can feel it right now, like in there. So there's tennis elbow, and then there's maybe it's golfer's elbow or something they call it. There's the other one on the inside. And, generally speaking, I've had pretty good luck with just rest, ibuprofen, going to the most extreme thing I've ever done is probably go to a physio or to a sports medicine person and ask them for some things. And they'll show you generally stretches and recommend heat or things like that. And luckily, nothing's ever progressed to me to the point where it's been really debilitating. But I would say sports medicine, a specialist, is probably the kind of person you want to see. They will know about all of it. Generally, it all stems from some kind of compression or tendons. Inflammation of the, tendonitis is the inflammation of the sheath around the tendon. The tendon is supposed to pass through it really easily, and with overuse, that can get inflamed. That sheath, and then you get the tendonitis, the burning, and all that. And then there's a lot of, my stuff is more nerve related. I think with I've got kind of slight wrists, and I'm not. I don't think there's a lot of space for nerves to be passing through just my frame, the way I'm built. So I run into problems, I think, with the wrist and with the elbow. But it can come from the shoulder too. And so if you ever get any, anything from pain to tingling, heat sensations, it's many times that's just nerves and compression, and it'll be the carpal tunnel or the elbow. So they treat it in a variety of ways. Some of the more extreme ways are surgery, obviously, like for carpal tunnel, and then steroid shots is kind of an extreme one step below surgery. But anyway, sports medicine person, I would say a specialist is your best way to address it. So Rick's video, and he was talking about Beat Detective and stuff. And he's one thing I learned from the video is Rick's a really good Pro Tools guy. He's pretty fast going through. He shows you, he uses a Soundgarden song actually as an example, and he's got the drums stemmed out in there, and then he goes through and Beat Detectives them and shows you that he plays you the song with a click and shows you that it's not on the grid. You know, it's not, it's a live performance that was cut with the snares and everything aren't dead on because it's a human being playing them with feel. And then he beat detectives it, which was a technique that basically producers started using around 2000, I think, or late 90s, 2000, 2001. I made a record in 2002, and that was the first time I saw beat detective used. And I'll always remember it because we cut drums live to, you know, we cut bass, rhythm guitars, and the drums live at Sound City, actually, which is the, you know, the thing that Dave Grohl made a movie about, that studio, classics. Yeah. So we cut everything to analog tape and at Sound City. And then after analog, everything got transferred into Pro Tools right away. And you want the sound of the tape compression and all that. But then they'd put it in Pro Tools, and then a Pro Tools guy would beat detective it. And this became like a production style where everything got snapped to the grid. So what it does is it goes through and it detects the approximate tempo and all that, and then it looks at all the spikes, the transients of the drums hitting, right, which look like a big spike in your DAW, and it'll find those and then put a little marker there, and then you can lock all those to the grid. So you're essentially you're quantizing, you're taking it, and 16th notes is what Rick said that everything was done to, basically. You're taking that performance and making it metronomic, essentially. And so I remember going, what is this beat detective thing? Like the fixed drums. We had a good drummer, you know, and that's the thing. It's like they would do this even when you got a good take, but it was like, no, this is what we do now. We're starting to, just like auto tune on vocals. It's like, oh, vocals, oh, we got to auto tune it, you know. It's like, well, actually, no, you don't. Like, it's a choice. But everybody was making the choice to do that stuff. It was this new production aesthetic that was happening in hard rock music. So, you know, Rick's video is all about that, basically. But anyway, I remember being seeing the drums from our record and in there with the Pro Tools guy, and our singer was standing there, and he goes, so what's this thing you're gonna, because he was very skeptical, and he said, what's this thing you're gonna do? And the Pro Tools guy just pushed return on the keypad, and you saw all the waveforms go just like that, just a little bit, you know. And he goes, see, that's all it does. It's not a big deal. And our singer goes, that was the feel. You just removed the feel. That's what you did. And he's right. That was his first time seeing, you know, Murray Yates. I always remember that. It was like the singer from 40 Foot Echo. And you saw the drums, you know, and there goes the feel. Now it's quantized, locked to the grid. And, yeah, you know, Rick makes the point that that's when, you know, when you did that. He also goes through in his video, and he's moving things around. He goes, see, now that I've done this, I can grab a kick and put it here. I can grab a snare and put it, I can make a roll. And he kind of starts looking like he's having fun with it. It's funny because he's making the point that it sucked all the life out of music, but then he starts acting like a producer. That's the thing. When you lock that stuff to the grid, you go, oh, look at all this great stuff I can do now. I can change the feel, or I like the second verse a little better. I can move that to be where, you know, the first verse is, and why don't we make a roll right here? And he's like, oh, I actually like that better maybe than the original record. You know, he's almost like forgets that he's making a video about how it's a detrimental thing, it seems like, but he's really fast at Pro Tools. So it's an enjoyable watch if you haven't seen it. But he then says, see, I'm basically, you know, it starts sounding like computer music, like a sequencer, because it's a sequencer. You're turning a live performance into a sequence performance. And he goes, that's when the magic kind of went out of it. Then he goes and does an analysis of a bunch of different songs, like Back in Black and some Rage Against the Machine and some different stuff. It says, so the song starts at 91 BPM. By the first verse, it's up to 92. The first chorus is at 93 BPM. The second verse falls back to 92. And then the second chorus, we're up to 94 to 95 BPM. He says, you know, so it's obviously not to the grid, but he says, that's music. That's people playing, and it speeds up and slows down, you know. And anyway, it's a good video. Good watch. And he's right, you know, it's like, and the thing about it is with these production techniques, the thing I never understood with many producers is like, well, this is just what we do now because this is the sound. This is what's popular. And it's like, you know, you don't have to use that tool. Like, it's just like having a 24-track recorder or a 48-track recorder, or now unlimited tracks in DAWs. You can load it up with 200 tracks if you want, as long as your computer will handle it. You don't have to fill up 200 tracks. If the song requires an acoustic guitar part and a vocal to be effective, you just need 2 tracks, you know? And it's the same thing with Beat Detective and Auto Tune and all these, you know, great tools that we have. Great. You know, it's like you can use them sparingly. I mean, I will tune vocals in productions if I'm producing something a little bit. If something's offensive and it's like outside of the realm of you know, and that's obviously a judgment call. Sure, I'll go in and maybe change that one thing on a good vocal performance, because it's like, well, we could recut the vocal, or I could just fix this one little thing that is consistent. You know, it's a fine line. It's like, you don't have to go through and tune the whole damn vocal though, you know. And it's the same thing with drums. There's drums on my record that I love the drum performance, but one part felt a little funny to me by one of the drummers that, you know, played drums on my thing. I was like, this one thing's bugging me. So I'm just going to go through, because it's essentially a great performance. And I went through and I used Flex Time, which is the beat detective that's in Logic. And I fixed, you know, maybe a 2-bar thing here and there. I would like just a little, but there's no way I went through and did that whole track, you know, there's no way. So you can use these things sparingly. And luckily, I think Amy Winehouse was the one that, for me, when her music came out, I was like, oh, thank God, here's somebody, the music sounds real again. And Jack White, you know, it was a great thing. Like the aesthetic, at least with those, I mean, he was out earlier, you know, but when Amy came out, music started sounding warm and real. And it was like, and you know, the producers that did that stuff were rebelling against the whole trend of, you know, when music was getting quantized and auto-tuned and super tight and slammed in mastering. And that just had to, you know, had to go the way of, you know, there's this thing, and I'm sorry, I'm not taking that many questions because I've been gabbing, but I'm off on a rant. The modern pop music I hear these days, this is why I like Billie Eilish, because her music doesn't do this. But in a lot of the modern pop music, where a lot of the drums are, you know, computer stuff sequenced, there's this, you know, I'm sure you guys have heard it, like there's just all this drums coming in and out, like not drums, but percussion elements, you know, where you hear this, right? And it's like, fuck, man, like, how are you supposed to get into the feel? I hate it. Like, I hate that stuff when I hear that on this modern pop music. I'm just ranting for a minute, but all that sounds coming in and out and stuff, it's like, oh God, it's the worst to me. And I hope it goes away soon, because it's just, it's like ADD drums or something, or ADD percussion. It drives me crazy, like hearing all those little sounds coming in and out. And I can never, like, how does anybody dance to that stuff? You know, it's like, there's never a consistent groove. And it's just all these like kind of really bright sort of percussive elements that pop in and out. I just want to I want a hypnotic groove that sounds like a person's doing it. I don't mind electronic. I listen to electronic music. I like it, but I want it to sound, it's got to have the key there, and it's where like Daft Punk were so brilliant bringing in Nile and stuff like that, was bringing in the human element to that music and bonding it together. That now you've got something really special, because ultimately for stuff to have, this is why Billie's music is special, because her vocals are so intimate and upfront, and the music's so warm and sparse and spare, and then her interesting lyrics and vocals come through so powerfully. I think, you know, there's this human element that's just undeniable. So I love that. Okay, that's enough ranting. Thanks for listening to my rant. Watch Rick's video, though. It's pretty cool, on how computers ruined rock music. I don't think computers have completely ruined rock music, but I think that you know, that he definitely makes great points, and that's absolutely what happened with Beat Detective and stuff. And I've had firsthand experience with, like, you know, that's great. We went to Sunset Sound and made a record, but what the hell did we Beat Detective everything for? You know, it's still a good record, but it's like, come on, you know, just because every producer's doing it. Well, if you jumped off a bridge, or not if you jump, if every producer jumped off a bridge, would you jump off a bridge too? You don't have to do it. Christopher Crooms is up in the top chat. Thank you, good sir. He says, do you think IRs will take over the standard Neve or API pre-57 or 121 setup for recording guitars? I've been experimenting, get great sounds with IRs, but still use the standard for clients. You know, it's all about workflow sometimes, and sometimes you need to get things done in 3 hours, and the budget dictates that, you know, IRs are the best way to go. To be honest with me, miking a cab sometimes, I did it on a demo many years ago where I was just sort of assuming, like, well, I'm always going to be able to get still a superior sound with mics and stuff over using a load box and IRs. So, you know, I'll do that for like my top projects or whatever. And then I like set up mics one day on a cab and got a really good sound and stuff. And then I went, I'm just going to listen to the reactive load with an IR for a second here. One of my favorite IRs for a similar I'm just going to compare them 1 second. And I listened, and it was like the IR sounded better to me than the miking setup. I just spent a half an hour setting up, and I was like, shit. And at the end of the day, it all depends on the tone. Like, is it a good sound or is it a bad sound? Who cares how you got there? It doesn't really matter. You know, it doesn't matter if it was recorded on, 16 track analog 2-inch with the best mic pre's and microphones, or if it was done into a computer using an IR. If the end result is that the tone moves you and sounds great for the song, that's all that matters. So, use what you think you should to get the best sound, I think. Now, having said that, sometimes if you've got a cab mic'd up all the time in your studio and it's ready to go, which I will have here hopefully sooner rather than later, and it just becomes an option that's, if a cab's dialed in with the mics in the perfect place and you can just plug it in and go, kind of like Tim Pierce does, that's how he rolls, then it's not a big deal, right? You can just pick between the best sound. But if, like the reactive load, the PT-15, this is what I made this thing with Surf for, is that it's so damn fast. It's plugged in, it's ready to go. I dial the knobs up and I dial up my greenback IR, and boom, I can track. And that video I did with Laurie where she's playing the solo on the PT-15, she came in, sat down, within 10 minutes she tracked that solo, and by the way, it was a first take. The one that's on my Instagram. She plugged in, I got a sound, got the level, go, can you hear it okay? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, well, let's take one, see what it sounds like. And I hit record. That's the take that's on the song. And she did about 6 more. And I was like, you nailed it the first time. It's perfect. So literally in 10 minutes, we had a tracked guitar tone. So that sounded, everybody responds to that solo she played. And they're like, that's brilliant. That's what nobody's like, great. Wish you'd mic'd it or whatever, So anyway, yeah. I missed somebody in the top chat. Who was it? It was Tim. He says, payment for me sampling your pop percussion beatbox. Yeah, 70 take that bullshit that I just mumbled and turn it into a song. That would be great. Or not. Pretty horrifying. But what else we got here, guys? I'm going to back up just a bit in the chat and Paul says you don't have to use Beat Detective. J. Dilla, Questlove. I don't know this. Soulquarians, Soultronics are a good example of this. I should go check that out. Have you ever lost a job, audition, or gig for your eye? I don't think so. No. Nobody gives a shit. The only people that give a shit are some people on the internet, it seems. I responded I think I came up with a pretty witty response to somebody that was trying to make a snide comment about my bum eye yesterday. What did he say on a YouTube video? He said, your eye, he said, look at the camera when you're talking to us. And I responded back and I said, hey, I was born with a bum eye. It's just how it is. But I said, the good news is that I can pay 10 grand and fix this eye. And, you'll never know. It'll look perfect. But I said, the bad news is that you're going to be an asshole for your whole life. And no amount of money is going to change that. So sorry to tell you. But anyway, it's true. I can fix my eye for 10 grand. I honestly don't care. I never thought about this eye that much. Lately, I'm starting to feel like it's worse. Like it's maybe that it's actually gotten worse in the last 10 years or so. So that freaks me out a little bit. So I will go to the doc and probably have it looked at sometime over the next year or two. But I know somebody that actually had the operation, and it's essentially a suture thing. They do that while you're awake, and then they move it, and you're actually awake, and they straighten it. But she said the best thing about it has been that she noticed. Now this eye doesn't work as well as this one. Like I'm super nearsighted and I have astigmatism and all that, and this one's got all that to a greater degree than this one. This is my dominant eye that I see out of, and I really look at you with. And then this one is the one that's just go on to sleep. It still works. It's hard to explain, but my brain is wired to see out of this one really when they're both open. As soon as I close this one, now this one, you'll notice it goes straight. Watch this. Okay. Now it's like, okay. So it's, anyway, she told me, it's like your brain wakes up then and goes, oh, I got to see out of this eye now. And then, anyway, she told me, the girl that had this done that I was speaking to, that the best thing about it was increased energy. I found that really interesting. That her energy seemed better, because she said you spend so much time trying to focus on things and stuff, and as soon as your eyes are straight and it's kind of dialed, she said, I noticed this energy boost, and I was like, whoa, that's interesting. Like maybe I've spent, the better part of 47 years or whatever, more exhausted than I need to be. Okay, somebody's up in the top chat. 1113K says, how far is your studio from your house? How much time do you spend there per week? I'm here like 6 days a week, and I don't know, in miles. It's a little ways. I think it's like 10 to 15 miles, something like that, from home. And I'm here, yes, about 6 days a week generally. That Source Audio trim pedal you did, says Stealth Parrot. I put that up on Monday, a video, was killer. That's a very special pedal. I totally agree. Really great sounding pedal. It sounds completely different than this. Oh, can I do this right now? I want to show you. I'm doing these Matthews effects, Astronomer. I've got it sitting. This isn't the pedal, but this is a different Matthews. They look like this. This is an overdrive. That sounds great, by the way. Cool pedals in that. Okay, this is a delay that I'm going to delay reverb that I'm going to get to. What Matthews have done is that they give you a few different options. So what this is it's like basically 2 sets of identical controls in these pedals. So what you would have here, I don't know exactly what. Let's see. They name the controls funny things like fuel and stuff. So I'm not. But basically, what it would amount to on this is a mix, a time, and a feedback. Okay, so this is a reverb and delay. So mix, time, and feedback would become mix, time, and, well, I can't remember exactly, but anyway, three simple controls, the ones that you would imagine would be on a reverb and delay, right? And what they do is they give you the 2 sounds, and then you can flip between them, so you get to have 2 preset settings. And there's different types of reverb and delay in here. So one's just an analog sounding delay, and then one's a certain type of sounding reverb, and then one's like a reverb with shimmer or something like that. I'm probably screwing this up but you get the idea with it. I'm still getting used to these pedals. You get 3 sounds, 3-way switch here, and you select one of them for the top row knobs, and you select one of them for the bottom row knobs. And then you turn on the pedal, and then you can flip between the 2 settings. That's unique. I've never seen that before. I think it's pretty cool. And so I'm making a video for the reverb pedal right now. That's kind of it's called the Astronomer. It's a very spacey sounding reverb with a bunch of shimmer and stuff. And it is the sort of antithesis to that Source Audio pedal that I did on Monday. The Source Audio pedal is an incredible sounding spring simulation, like one of the coolest sounding spring reverb things that I've ever heard. And it's digital. It's not actually a spring, but sounds so good. And then this Matthews pedal that I'll have a video out for this next week is much more of the spacey kind of ambient modern reverb thing with shimmer and stuff. So polar opposite reverbs. But Joshua says Wampler Tumnus is an amazing pedal in a mini footprint. I agree. I like it. I like the mini Tums. It's a good one. Super good. Super good. I'm just looking through some of the randomly. I've moved to the bottom of the chat here. Hector says he likes the Sono. He says it sounds unreal. Yeah, good unit. I mean, if you want to track guitar sounds and you don't have like a amp and load box setup or a Helix or something, you're like, how can I get some good simple guitar sounds? What's a good simple like amp like interface that I can run into and just track cool tones, run some pedals into it? It's real good for that, and it's a nice price. It's like $449. What's the best place to sell used gear, eBay or Reverb? I don't know. What do you guys think? Reverb? I always thought the gear page was pretty good because it's a tight knit community kind of, and you can't screw around on there, so it would seem like you'd get a bad rep if you did something. I think you got to pay to be a part of it and sell gear. You have to be a supporting member of it, but it seems like I would rather have that kind of protection of being like kind of like a smaller group. You might try that, or a Reverb I think is probably pretty good. eBay, I don't know. I've sold some things on eBay, but I've also had a bad experience where somebody tried to screw me around for money on there. What are my main drives these days? Jan Ray, Bogner Blue, Rocket Archer, and a Boss FZ2 Fuzz, old Hyper Fuzz. And Jan Jennifer says that I was talking about Euphoria Morning by Chris Cornell. She says that that's his best work ever. Alan Johannes' contributions are significant, definitely. Higher Truth is your favorite, but Euphoria Morning the best. Yeah, I'll tell you a funny Higher Truth story. One day when I had gotten into that album, it's got some great songs on it, and I was commenting to Chris that I love the lyrics on it. I was like, wow, man, you really pulled it out like lyrically on this. It's deep and I love it. And he goes, well, you kind of have to. He goes, it's an acoustic record. He goes, think about it. Like when you're rocking, and he's like, slow ride. He was so funny, man. It's slow ride. You can just say slow ride, take it easy, right? He's like, and he's like, but once you strip it down acoustic guitar, you got to sing some poignant shit that connects, So I thought that was really funny. He's just funny, man. Crack up. Brad says, I don't know what Brad said. You guys are talking amongst yourselves. Let's see here. Did you play on the track Push, Robbie Draco Rosa? I don't think so. I played on the Mad Love album on one tune, and then I co-wrote a couple songs off his next record, but did play on them. Mad Love was largely done by the time that I came into the picture, but I did play on one song. I'm trying to remember the name of it. I can't remember. Tom's in the top chat. He says, do you use pedals? Thanks, Tom. You're too kind. Do you use pedals into the clean channel of your PT or amp distortion more? Also, have you had the $10 coffee yet? Not yet, my friend. I do a little bit of both. Depending on the gigs, it ends up being probably like 60-40 split in favor of mostly amp distortion. But I do use my Jan Ray and the Bogner pedal. Used to use the TWE from Ethos, also a nice pedal. Burping, excuse me. I use those drives as alternate sounding. I always say the Jan Ray is like my Tweedy drive, and then the Bogner Blue I use as kind of a lower gain version of the tone of my PT channel too. So if I need a kind of a lower gain sound, I'll do that. I've been loving the sound of the PT15 with the gain on like 2.5 on channel 2 for like kind of lower gain solo tones. It sounds really great. So I've been doing that a lot. I've been wondering how I'm gonna, I don't know. It's interesting. I'm loving that amp, man. I'm still just getting used to it, but it's got such a great clean channel as well. Hey, have you ever tried the JHS Charlie Brown? Says Fred. I have, yeah. Similar to the Andy Timmons, I think. Andy's pedal was based off of it. It's a good pedal, largely kind of garnered the design, I think, from the Marshall Governor, I think, is where that came from. Always a good sounding pedal. Okay, I'm going to go down to the bottom of the chat here. It's about 1 o'clock, so I'll go another 20 minutes or so and hang with you guys. I saw Jack White in a country band filling in YouTube of Jack White, and you're saying it was amazing. That's Old Guy's Guitar Vlog. Yeah, he's a great. I think I have a lot of respect for him, as you guys probably know. I think he's great. The feel is what rock and roll is all about, says Music Therapy. That's why rock is so different today. All the liveliness is taken out. Well, so we can't say with everybody, right? Like there's some great bands out there still. Close to me here rehearsing is Black Rebel Motorcycle Club. Those guys are still out actively making records and touring, and they are one of the damn best rock and roll bands ever, I think. They're so great. I love that band. If you guys aren't into Black Rebel Motorcycle Club, get Baby 81 and enjoy. It came out in 2009, I think, but what a record. Baby 81, Black Rebel Motorcycle Club. Everybody go buy it on iTunes. Don't just stream it. Buy it. Put it on and listen. Tell me that shit just doesn't make you, I don't know. It's good. It's just real rock and roll music. So good and dark and cool. And, they got this other album called Howl. That's really great. It's more like acoustic, kind of bluesy. But they're just such a cool band. I don't know. And if you see them live, man, I don't know. They're just a real deal. What else from modern rock bands I'm into? I don't know. What have I seen lately? I don't know. Still good stuff out there, man. Still good stuff. Watching the Coachella stream yesterday, there was a little bit of the Interrupters. They were cool in that kind of Orange County punk vein. they're a good, sort of newer band. They were funny. They were real tight. You know, it's basic like 4-chord punk rock and roll, but fun. I like it. A little ska kind of thrown in there. Orange County punks. I don't know if they're from Orange County. I think maybe they are, but they're cool. Terry says, just getting into a stereo setup. Love the TC flashback in stereo. Any good reverb or tremolo stereo pedals? Well, I just did, yes, the spring reverb I did this week is absolutely fantastic for what you're asking for. The True Spring from Source Audio. Take a listen to the demo I did on Monday. Listen to the side-to-side tremolo and the spacious, expansive reverb. Killer sounding pedal, man. That's what you want. Source Audio True Spring. And you can store 3 presets on the switch. So if you got like a, you know, sort of ampy spring you want, then you want a more like super ambient hall. It's got this amazing spring hall sound that still sounds like a spring reverb, but it's like a hall and it sounds great. And then you could have something with tremolo. And it's got options for expansion as well. Like you can actually store 128 MIDI presets with that thing. You just have to get something called the hub or something, and you know, set it up with their app and everything. It's an interesting pedal. The Source Audio people, they go at it by basically having like a simple interface, like 4 knobs and a switch, but some secondary functions that you can get to by pushing a button. And then if you get into the computer editor, and plugging it in via USB, you can go as deep as storing 128 presets and doing all kinds of stuff. So they've really tackled like simple versus complex. We'll give you both and you decide what you want to do. So I'm a fan. Leon's in the top chat, and I believe he's in Mexico. Thank you, my friend. He says Sono or tube amp with load IR for recording an album. Draco is amazing in that he is ex Menudo. That's right. He's also wrote Ricky Martin greatest songs from the 90s. He did. He wrote Livin' La Vida Loca. He wrote She Bangs. He's a, you know, he's an underrated genius for sure. Draco Rosa, if you haven't checked out, he did an album called Vagabundo that is kind of, people say, is like the Latin rock Nevermind. It's super creative and weird and cool and just different and dirty, and I like it. It's really good. So Vagabundo, another great, if you want to hear a cool record, it's pretty cool. Now, Sono or tube amp with load IR for recording an album. I like the Sono. It's great. I'm a fan. I've got amps. I love the reactive load. You know, given those 2 choices, I'm going to pick a bunch of amps with the reactive load because then I've got all these options, right? To be honest. So if you've got amps you love, the reactive load's a no-brainer. It's a great way that you can just use your amps, not get used to some new workflow. Yeah. Surf By says, late to the party. Hello, Pete and everyone from Boston. Okay. I'm going to go to the bottom of the chat because I'm so far out of it. I don't even know what I've been missing. And let's see. That's an interesting question. Do I find the V4 tube needs replacement more than others? Do you mean like the phase inverter tube on an amplifier? That was from Jim. The phase inverter, as I understand it, is good to replace. It's wise to replace it when you do power tubes because it's part of the power section and it gets driven pretty hard. So yeah, I've had definite moments where I've replaced the V4 tube in amps. My top hat and plexador that's down there, I remember once replacing the V4 tube, and it made the amp come to life. It was like, oh my god, it's been screwed up and I didn't even realize it. It sounded so much better when I replaced the phase inverter. So yeah, I think it's a good idea. Good phase inverter tube, I think, for relatively inexpensive is the LPS Sovtech long plate. Something about long plate tubes and phase inverters, they sound good. I don't know, tube guys could tell you why, but people smarter than me. Royal Blood are dope. Yeah, I like Royal Blood. That's Simto. I agree. They're a good rock and roll band. BRMC kicks ass, as Joshua. I agree. Yeah, please check out BRMC if you want to hear one of my favorite rock bands. I'm a big fan, man. Big fan. Get That Baby 81 album. Produced, by the way, by a guy that I used to be in a band with. It was produced by Rick Parker, who I used to be in a band called Sparkler with in the 90s for about 6 months. Yeah. Okay, what else we got here? Silly question from Lauren. He says it's a silly question. I bet it's not. Could you amp up the PT15 running the effects loop out to effects loop in of a PT100? Actually, I wouldn't run the effects loop out. Yes, you could totally do that. I wouldn't run the effects loop out though. I would probably run the I would do the reamp thing where I would turn off the IRs and then run the line output into maybe effects or something or mixer, and then you could go into a power amp of some sort, either PT100 return or a different power amp, and reamp. Essentially, that's, you know, getting the tone of the small amp, cranking a power section to the zone or whatever, taking the line out, going into a reamp. So you could totally do that. Not the effects loop out, but the load out, and you would just turn off the you know, it's called the balance line out, but just turn off the IRs. Yep, you can do that. Lots of people do. Well, not lots, because nobody has the amp yet, but lots of people do reamp setups like that. Yeah. Let's see. CAEOD 100 versus Bogner 20th anniversary or Soldano. I can get a custom audio at a good bargain. I don't know. It just depends on what you want to do. You know, you could, people that like the Bogner sound, you know, that sort of more full low mids thing, that's their thing. Or the Soldano is its own thing. Different lead sounds. And then when it comes to the clean channel, I think that CAE clean channel is the best in the business. So you got to consider that the channel 1 on the CAE is fantastic. I think it beats out every other clean channel from, you know, most of the 3 channel amps out there. So you know, it all depends what you want, but you know, consider the clean channel, consider the overdrive character you want, listen as much as you can to them. And yeah. Okay, what else we got here? So let's see. Bill says I should start a band and play my tunes live because he wants to come see me. Thanks, man. I will probably do it at some point this year. I'm starting to work on getting a set together and stuff like that. So I want to do it. We're going to figure it out. Okay. Let's see. Why does EVH's tone on Fair Warning sound more ballsy? Is it blackback speakers, super distortion pickup, H3000, something else? That's from Wyatt. I don't know. It does a great sound on that record, but you know, it could be down to something like the recording chain. I really don't think he was doing anything that different. Fair Warning did sound really good though. You're right. It is ballsy and full. I mean, it could be the way it's mic'd, and it's interesting because Women and Children First guitar sound has a different sound than Van Halen 2. It's more similar in some ways to Van Halen 1 here and there, but it's not the same. So, you know, it's hard to say. You know, it could be anything. It could be the way they mic'd. You know, you literally move the mics like an inch, and it's like, oh, there's more. You know, you move them in a little bit. It's like, oh, proximity effect. Now we got more low end. Impossible to tell. You know, I really love the tone on Van Halen too, to be honest. I love it. I love it. I love it. Hey, Pete, have you ever tried an attenuator after your 88S studio into cabs? No, but there's no reason why you can't do that. That's Armando. I use loads after the 88. You know, the first on the selector on here, basically I've got the the reactive load, the aux, the X load, and then these are for 2 cabs that I don't have wired up yet. So that's the first 5 speaker selections. So you could have one of those running into, you know, an attenuator. As long as you put the attenuator load in line, you're cool. You're covered. You're not gonna have a problem. Would love to see a Pete and the Drills show, says Nathaniel. That would be great. There's another friend of mine that I've talked to that proposed doing some shows with me later in the year, and I want to pursue that. So we'll see want to try and get it together. TAD 12AX7, what does that say? AC balanced phase inverter is the best that I've found, says Mike Buckman, for a phase inverter tube. TAD 12AX7, I think it says AC. Interesting. Am I planning on getting a Sir Aura, says the Batigs. John has one that he's threatening to make for me. But, you know, the reality is that the thing is that with the Auras, you know, as you guys know that follow that at all, if you are, they're behind on getting it. And they are getting out there. I mean, I think they've made 30 of them or something. But, you know, they're way behind. And it's just due to, honestly, it's the best reason there could be for such a situation, which is that John's only got so many hours in the week. And he's a freak about the quality and the frets. And, you know, he's doing all the fretwork himself. So anytime I go out there, he'll spend a bit of time with me doing whatever we're doing. Then he goes, okay, I got to get back to work. I'll be at my bench. And he goes out on the floor and he goes to a bench and he's got an Aura on there every time and his light on and it's with his thing on his head. He's sitting there filing and with the block. And, you know, he's doing the frets on every single one and he can only do like a couple, 3 of them a week or something, I think. I don't want to say, I don't know how many he can do, but, you know, he spends a couple days on each guitar. Now, the funny story about John that he told on, I think it was on Tone Talk, but he told the story about how he got fired from his first guitar tech job in New Jersey because he took too long to get fret dresses done. And they were like, John, you got to get these done quicker. Like, we're not, you know, and he's like, it's got to be right. I can't just like, you know, I'm not going to do a shitty job and then send the guitar out of the shop. So that's what you're getting is that, you know, dedication to quality and, you know, they're expensive instruments, but you get a guitar that was worked on for 2 days by the guy whose name's on the headstock. You know, he literally does everything. It looks, I mean, those things, I'm telling you, if there was one little flaw, he's showing me somewhere, he's like, I can't sell this one. And he's like, I'm thinking of keeping it for myself and it'd be a beautiful Aura, you know? And I'm like, why? And he goes, well, look at this. And I'm looking and my eyes aren't so good, but I'm looking in the back and he's like, there's a little hairline crack under there. And it's like the finish is already on. I can't, and I'm like in the finish, the undercoat or something, you know? And I'm like, every angle I'm holding the guitar and I'm like, dude, you're insane. Like nobody's ever going to see this. You're crazy. And he's like, no, I can't sell it. I can't, it's not. And so that's what you're paying for. You know, you're getting a guitar that's going to be, it's going to come out of the case and you're never going to see anything that's so perfect, you know, as that's his specialty. That's what he does. You know, we were talking a while ago about relic guitars and how when they started doing that at Fender, he was just like, you got to be kidding me. Because I mean, he'd spent all this time, like, you know, he's such a perfectionist. And the fact that you could just hack a guitar up with a screwdriver or whatever, and then blow Freon on it and make it crack and stuff and then sell it for more. It was just like, that blew his mind. You know, anyway, Tom says your eye is not a disability. My son has autism, and although he can't communicate well verbally, he is a mathematical genius. Yeah, I mean, folks that are, and he's up in the top chat. Well, it's somewhat of a disability. It does limit me in certain ways. Believe me, there's some things that I can't do. So I consider it a disability. You know, like I ain't getting into, you know, I'm not going to be an Army sharpshooter, for example. There's certain jobs, probably pilot. I doubt I'd get a license, you know? So, you know, it's disabling in some ways. Autism is, you know, I know some folks that are on the spectrum for sure, and they're geniuses in their own way for sure. But, you know, we're talking about completely different problems, I guess. Thanks, Tom, for doing the top chat. I appreciate it. Can I talk? Oh, this is Oscillation Overdrive. This is a great question. A great question. Slow down, Pete. You drank too much coffee. Playing and singing at the same time. How to do that? My friend Al taught me a great thing for playing and singing at the same time. Trying to get down, you know, some skills. If you're like trying to nail a background vocal and it seems counter to whatever you're playing, he said, first of all, work on the guitar part and nail it, and then work on the vocal part and nail it, separate, apart from one another. Don't be trying to work on the two of them together. Make sure you've got them both dialed so they're almost like muscle memory, second nature, and then put them together. And he said, what you're going to probably notice if they're hard to do at the same time is that there is 1 or 2 places where the rhythm is throwing you off in either the vocal or the guitar. And those are the things to focus on, like that targeted practice of that one little spot that's throwing you off. And I found that was true. It was like, wow, most of the line I could sing, but when I get to this one word or phrase, and then it's going against this upstroke that I'm doing here, it throws me every time. And then I just practice that kind of slow. And then all of a sudden you get it once, and then you get it again, and then you put it together. It's like, oh my God, there it is. And it's like a drummer with different limbs and doing, feet and hands. You just have to work on it real slow, target on that one little spot. And his advice to get both of them nailed separate from one another first really helped me. So Tom says, sorry, what I meant is you are unique. I get it, Tom. I think I didn't, no offense taken. I understood what you were saying. It was a nice thing you were saying. I get it. I appreciate that. Sometimes I take things too literally. So sorry. So what else we got here? Just let Bruce Dickinson be your pilot. You'll be okay. You're right. Does that mean I get to join Iron Man? They need a fourth guitar player, maybe. Huh? I'm behind in the chat, says Mike, but Slow Ride, that's an awesome story. Yeah, I love how he pulled Slow Ride out, just like, well, yeah, I wrote this acoustic album. You got to write good lyrics. I mean, when you're rocking, it doesn't like Slow Ride. Come on. I laughed, man. He was a funny guy. Funny. Yep, not available. Says, he's in the top chat. He says, do you radius your Thornbucker pole pieces to match the fretboard radius? No, I never do. I leave them however they're set from the factory, to be honest. And just however the guitars come set up or the pickup, I don't think about it that much, generally speaking. Joshua says relic guitars are like Benjamin Buttons. In 50 years, they'll look brand new. That'd be funny. It's true. You just get them refinished. Let's see. Can you put some more tracks on Jam Track Central? Loved learning Perplexed, Groomed Noodler, and Homage. I should do that. You're right. I just, more than anything, it's just a amount of time. More than anything, there's just not enough time in the day. That's what I find. Do I own any vintage gear? I got an old Strat, an old Telly, and a 335. Those are my vintage pieces. Oh, and my Marshall back there is from '71. The one in the amp rack over there, right there. I touched it. Oh, my Bassman too. Sorry, didn't mean to neglect you. Sitting right there, 66 Bassman. Okay, targeted practice works for pretty much everything that needs to be mastered, says Preston. I believe that to be true. Yeah, kind of focusing on the problem area. When you're learning a song and you're playing over and over and over this parts that and then you get to the hard part and then you screw it up and then you go back and play over and over and over the parts It's like, don't do that. Just focus on the one hard part in any lick, in any vocal phrase, in any target that, and you'll find you get so much more done in a less amount of time, Let's see. Robert says you can get a pilot's license. FAA has a thing called demonstrated ability waiver. I had a pilot friend who was blind in one eye. That's interesting. I mean, the reality is, I guess planes probably fly themselves basically these days to some large degree. It's probably not as hard to do as a car. One thing I never wanted to do was ride a motorcycle because I just feel like I have limited, when I shoulder check in a car, like when I'm making a right lane turn, I look way over my shoulder and use my left eye, and look through the rear window. And I always try and not fudge that or I try and really, be careful. And riding a motorbike with, I just feel like my lack of peripheral on my right side could be a real problem. Just not a good idea. So Sunday is always the shittiest day of the week for him. This is James F. And he says, this is what gets me through. Sorry, dude. I wonder why Sunday's bad. I'm glad to be here and spend Sunday with you. I'll be here, except for next week. Once again, just as I'm getting to the end of this one, I'm going to wrap it up in about 5 minutes here, or 10 minutes. I can't make it next week, guys. I'm going to be not here. So Monday, I'm going to do the Monday after next Sunday, which I guess is it's the 22nd, I believe. Monday the 22nd. I'll do Monday evening. And why don't we just say 6 p.m. Okay, I'm going to say 6 p.m. That'll be 9 p.m. on the East Coast. Seems like a reasonable time for kind of, West Coast, East Coast. And folks in Europe, I guess, that's not going to work out so good. But I can do Monday evening. Seems like makes sense, you know. I don't want a Monday during the day, a work day, and all that. And yeah, so I'll be around at 6. If you're up at 1 a.m. on Sunday night in UK, I guess maybe 1 or 2 a.m. Come see me. You won't be. I know you won't. Sorry, Europe folks, but yeah, just that 1 week, and then I'll be back to after next week. I'll be back to the regular as scheduled 11 a.m. on Sundays. Yeah. We all can't have everything perfect. Many would love your fingers and ears. Yeah, that's true. I'll take my, you know, I'm lucky, man. I mean, hey, I kept all my hair. I got nothing to complain about. Shitty eye, I'll take it. We all got our own crap going on, don't we? You know, nobody's perfect. I see it divided by 13. In what situations do you use it? That's kind of like an AC30, that one back there. It's a, I was using it for something this week. It's a RSA 31. So it's his AC30 sort of amp. It does sound really good. I've had it for years and years and years. Yeah. What else? If Sir asks you about a PT guitar too, what's that guitar going to be? That's an interesting question. Yeah, you know, it'd probably be some variation on a classic, I guess. I was thinking, you guys let me know what you think. I mean, I was thinking of maybe a valid thing would be to do similar guitar to mine, but maybe go a little more like if we ever did something like this, maybe single coil in the neck, you know, because that's a sound that, you know, I just love. And, you know, yeah, like, you know, and maybe consider then at that point doing a different body wood and going a little more neck, like going a little more Strat, you know. So it'd be maybe a Sir standard, but with, you know, single coil neck and maybe switching up the woods or something like that for a little more traditional Strat thing. And maybe not. I'd love to hear a prototype actually with a single coil in the neck of my guitar, but with the woods we use now with mahogany and stuff, and see how it sounds, you know. So I'd have to think about it, but that would be the main thing that I would want to do, I think, and keep the bridge that I'm using now. You know, maybe, you know, I would look at like tweaking the neck shape a little bit, like basically almost exactly the same thing, but adding like a little bit thicker with a bit of a V on the back, you know, because I like that. Like the smallest amount of my old Strat has this really interesting subtle V. So probably somebody just got a little overzealous with sanding the shoulders on it. And it's got this little bit of a thing to it that's really comfortable. So I would consider that, or for tweaks. But basically, it's my main guitar. I mean, my Sir is it's the one I pick up all the time in here as it's my go-to, no-brainer, get the job done, jack of all trades, home bass guitar these days. So it's hard because when I switch, sometimes I love picking up my, you know, Les Pauls or like my Yaren or the different ones, and they're great. But when you pick them up, you go like, like as far as the tuning and stuff goes, you know, you're having to deal with the standard 3 on a side headstock and all that stuff. And I get so used to my own guitar with the bridge and the tuning stability. And it's just like I can get my work done so fast with it. That's what's great. You know, I can get the sounds and just do what I need to do with that guitar. 9 times out of 10, it's the right call, you know? So I love my guitar. I do. Just a great, great tool. The Clapton Strat has a V that's comfortable, says Joe. Yeah, I like a slight V, you know? I really do. I definitely do. Let's see. What else we got here? What else we got? I'm going to split in a sec. Mike says, I have amps, but I want a load box or hot plate with good options for good price. Well, I don't, as far as the attenuator, if you want to use attenuation and play live, the Fryette Power Station is a great choice. If you want a load box for recording, the Reactive Load IR is my favorite thing out there for a simple device, you know? So either one of those, excuse me, are the ones to consider. HSS or HS for the PT2, like another guitar. I would want to try an HSS, hum single. Go extreme, Pete. Flying V hollow body with EMGs, says John. Why not do a Flying V acoustic? Why not just do that? I'll tell you another Cornell story. Okay, real quick, and then I'm gonna split. This is funny. You just reminded me of this. As a joke, he told me once he wanted to do an acoustic flying V as a signature model. And those existed already. I go, dude, I think they already did that. Like Dean had one. And he's like, yeah, I wanted to go to, like, I just thought I'd just like mess with them and go to Gibson and tell them, yeah, like I've really been thinking about this. It's acoustic Chris Cornell signature flying V. And then we found one online. He was like, shit. He was all bummed out, like, because Dean had done it already. That was pretty funny. But he was going to like see, that's how he was. He would see it through, you know, like very serious, a lot of emails, 6 months of back and forth, getting prototypes made. And I don't know if he'd ever tell anybody or if they just put it out and he'd just, yeah, it's pretty funny. Takamiti made an acoustic. Yeah, I think a couple were already done. He was so excited about that. I think he was really stoked. Is this still live? This is still live, says Music Guys. I'm still here. I know it's ridiculous. I should go and get on with my. I'm going to go finish the video for this Matthews pedal. I recorded a bunch of fun ambient stuff with it yesterday. Hit the like button on your way out, says Metalhead Hippie. I appreciate that. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, if you hit the like, it does help. The like on the it's got 152 thumbs up. I really appreciate that. I'm gonna hit it. I like it. I'm having fun. Oh, I can't hit a thumbs up on my own video. It doesn't let you do that. Of course not, right? It would be so narcissistic. No, I do like being here with all of you every week. I do very much. That's why I do it. All right, so thanks for you guys, for all of you folks that did the top chat. I really appreciate that. You guys are too kind. I'll be able to go and buy that $10 coffee this week from Alfred's in Studio City. somebody last week I think sent me $10. That said I want to know what it's like too. Yeah, there's a $10 coffee. It's called the $10 latte, I believe. And I'm just wondering what makes a $10 latte so damn good. You know, you wonder, is it really that good? Yeah. All right. Well, you guys have a great week, and please come see me next Monday night, 6 p.m. because I won't be here next Sunday. Remember, I'll put up a Facebook post saying as much, as well as a YouTube. I've been doing the one thing I wanted to mention just before I go. I've been doing the YouTube stories thing a bit, which is like, really, there's another stories thing that you can do, but I've been doing it, so I've been posting on there. So I don't know, just throughout the week, if I see something cool and I think it'd be interesting to the YouTube audience, you folks, I put up a little YouTube story. So I'll do that this week with regards to Sunday, just to remind everybody and stuff. I don't want anybody to be going, where the hell is he next week? What's Facebook, says Oscillation Overdrive. Yeah, exactly. I rarely use Facebook anymore. I do post stuff on my Facebook music page and it's useful, but my personal page, I felt bad because I went and actually checked the emails on Messenger this week, and there was some emails from friends of mine on there, and I'd never responded. I was just like, dude, I'm so sorry. It's like, I just don't really use this anymore. Just hit me up at my Facebook. But I do use it for, I post things on the relevant things, I think, on my Facebook music page. Blah, blah, blah. You guys have a good week, and I'll see you next Monday, the 22nd, I do believe, 6 p.m. if you're around and you can make it. We'll see you then. If not, 2 weeks from today, here, same time, same place, in this studio. Thanks for joining. See you guys.